Hello folks, we are back again. Board Bob, and this is Factorio Modded. So last time we started setting up our all of our smelting operation, and I went ahead and finished that up off camera. So I wanted to give you guys a look-see what we got. So here it is. So we got our copper plates are being manufactured here, and our iron plates are here, and then steel production is over here. So basically we've got, let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Yeah, so we got 9, and that's 9 times 6. So we got 54 electric furnaces here, and we got, let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So we got 60 over here, and they are banging away at plates, and then some of those plates get pulled, some of the iron gets pulled off and goes into steel. And we've got, let's see, 1 2 3 6 9 12 15 18 21 24 electric furnaces producing steel plates. So so that should keep us in iron, steel, and copper for a little while, at least until those supplies run out. And of course, like I said before, I four-belted it. I wanted to make sure we get as much throughput as possible. And I four-belted the output. We're going to combine those together as well. What I would like to do, though, is over here I would like to build a buffer for ore. I'm kind of looking ahead now. Eventually, not anytime soon, I hope, because this is 2.5 million ore, but eventually this will begin to play out. It'll begin to run out, and we're going to be training in a whole bunch of ore from other locations. So because this is going to be our primary smelting area, so at least for the foreseeable future. So eventually this is going to play out, and this 1.5 million copper is going to play out, and we won't have those coming in, but we will still have the belts. So what my thought process was, let me get off the belt and get back over here where I was doing, is if I put in a buffer for copper ore and iron ore now, and link them into the system, it'll give us a buffer for when this speeds up and slows down for demand, and B, it will set up basically our storage area for when new copper and iron ore starts to be brought in by train. So that's kind of my next plan in the basic infrastructure. We're still trying to get our basic infrastructure set up in a permanent fashion so that we can start expanding from there. So I went ahead and I grabbed my old blueprint from the last game, and brought it on over, because there's no sense, again, like I say, reinventing the wheel. So let's flip this over, and we're going to sit the iron on this side and the copper on this side, and that way we can kind of link them into these belts. And what that'll do for us is we'll still have the throughput of the 4 belts, but we will also have some of it going into this storage, so that when things change and you know, we get more demand, this will help to make up some of that. It'll also store our incoming, so we'll be good to go there. So let's flip this over. I thought I flipped it, and then maybe I flipped it back. Anyway, so we're going to stick these in. I'm going to kind of come down a little ways, because I'm not exactly sure how much space it's going to take to tie these in yet. But we're going to go ahead and try and give ourselves as much room as possible. Do we have any? No, we don't. Let's go down here and get some. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to go down and get some landfill. We're going to fill in this little lake here, and we're going to give ourselves some space. Um, so ain't that pretty? Look at that, man. It's just completely covered in mines. Um, so that will tap itself out, when it does. But before then, we shouldn't be hurting for any kind of ore for any amount of time. Let's hope so, anyway. So set up a little plant over here to start manufacturing some landfill. So let's grab this landfill out of here. Now we still got our little plant down here and our starter base down here, which is gonna continue to serve us pretty good until we get this stuff up here set up. Let's go ahead and do some research while we're thinking of it too. Let's see what we want to do next. The gun damage, circuit networks. We're definitely going to want to do that, but we're not really ready for it yet. Modules. Modules is going to open up modular armor, which would be nice to have. Lasers, again, is going to open up our laser turrets. We'll need to make some military science, but that's not that big a deal. Let's see. Accumulators and solar panels. I want to start getting our railroad laid. So I definitely I want my wall. I want my gates because we need them for the railway. I want the accumulators for the same reason, and I want the solar panels for the same reason. I also want my substations for the same reason. So we're going to have to look at making some more science packs, but we're not right now. Let's go ahead and work on our solar power portion of this. Let's see, 100, 150, 250. Okay, we'll do the gates, then we'll do the accumulators, then we'll do the panels, and we'll progress from there. Start. So let's go back on up here and fill in this little lake, and we'll get our buffers set up for our ores, and then we're going to set up next to those. We're going to go ahead and set up buffers for our finished plate, all three different varieties. Again, for the exact same reasons, so that we have a nice supply of them going forward. We don't have to worry about where we're going to get them from, etc., etc., etc. So there we go. That should be plenty of room to plop this schematic down. What do I do with my book? There's my book. All right, so like I say, we could probably almost put both of them on that side, but you know what? Why do I keep insisting on limiting myself room-wise when I know later on I'm going to need to be able to go around stuff and what have you? It just doesn't make sense. So let's go ahead. Let's put it the width of one over. What do you think? I think that'll do it. We'll put it right there, and we'll go straight over on this side. Straight over, except that we walked across the belts and that moved us. But tell me up. Yeah, there we go. So looks like right. And we're going to go a little closer on this one because we got this stone here. We're also going to mine this stone, and we're going to want a couple of buffers. We're going to want to be able to fit some more of our buffers in here. Oh heck, you know what? Nah, because then I have to cross it over, and I don't want to have to cross it over, blah blah blah. But we could do this. I was thinking, let's do this. Let's put one here for the copper. Okay? We'll put one here for the copper. And that's about centered. and we'll put one here for the iron. And that should let us go ahead and dump in our ores for those. And then we're going to come back here. You know what? You go up there. I want you down here. All right. So now we're going to want buffers for our iron and for our steel plate. So let's give ourselves some room. And we'll go 1, 2. There's our iron, there's our steel plate, and there's our copper. So these are going to be our output buffers for all 3 of those items. So that's got our inputs and our outputs covered as far as anything we're going to produce and what have you. Now, since I am running 4 belt systems, at least for these main buses going in and probably the main buses going out for right now, let's get rid of the 2 inputs over here and over there. Let's just do the 4. That way we're not trying to squeeze down and squeeze back up. We got it evened out. There we go. All right. So now we have our schematics laid out for both of those. Let's go ahead and throw those down. So I went ahead and I made myself some chests so that we can get this party started, as it were. There we go. So that's gates. Then we wanted accumulators. Sometime here in the very near future, we need to make ourselves robots, at least personal robots. We need to get them in a suit and what have you. So we're probably going to work on that in a very near episode. We're going to get our robotics system, our at least a temporary system, just to give us some bots to help with all of this generic building that we're doing. You know, just so you guys don't have to watch me sit here and put in chests over and over and over again. But I think this is going to help us out. This is going to take up any bounce in the system, any fluctuations due to demand that we're going to encounter. This should allow us to have the flexibility to not have to worry about that. And these are all steel chests, by the way. The old schematic was iron chests and yellow inserters. I went ahead and built a bunch of steel chests, given the fact that we've got so much steel production now. I have not set up for faster inserters and faster belts yet. That will come with time, and the nice thing about that is, even though we're going to use the yellow ones for now, when we pick those back up, those can go into the system and they will supply the raw materials for producing those higher speed items. So we'll reuse those. They will go back into the system. I'm just, for right now, I want to get it laid out and get it functioning. Not necessarily speed, but function. And then we can go from there on upgrading it at a later time, which we will do. I mean, we'll probably at this point take this all the way up, as high as we can with regards to inserters and belts and whatnot. So we'll be looking at blue belts. We'll be looking at stack inserters, etc. This is just to get us going, so that we know what we're doing, where we're laying it out, and we'll know that it works. Oh wow, ran out of chests. Did not expect to run out of chests. I thought I had made a bunch, but well, I mean, I did make a bunch, but I didn't think I'd made too few. Let's put it that way. So let's just grab some more iron or some more steel, and you'll notice while I'm grabbing this up, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of gap forming in this system. Yeah, we're taking some off the belts here, but I mean, we're gathering up an awful lot of resources right now, and it's doesn't really seem to be bothering us too much with regards to slowing our production down one bit, which is what's nice about this system, and the way I've got it set up here. I think so anyway. I think it's gonna do wonders for us in the long haul. Yes, I'm making a lot of stuff by hand right now. I don't have factories in yet. I do have a bunch of factories that we will be laying down very soon. Again, this is all a matter of getting our initial infrastructure set up. And for me, personally, my view on that is I want my minor resources, my plates and what have you, first. And then I'll worry about actually making something worthwhile out of them. But for right now, I just want the supply there so that I can turn around and start, using it for other things. So there's several things we're going to be in now that we've got this set up, or we will have this set up, that we're going to start really pushing for. In addition to these buffers, if we have the time, I also made a number of refineries and a number of tanks, and we will get our permanent refinery area set up. If we don't have the time, I'll probably end up doing that off camera. I'm not going to bore you guys with that too much. But having said that, the next thing after that, we will definitely start investing in our item production in a big way. We'll get our research set up. We'll get our production set up for inserters, belts, etc., etc., etc. Robots, you name it. We're gonna start concentrating on automation here very soon. Now that we have a solid supply of raw materials, that was my goal with setting up this area, was to get ourselves a nice solid supply of raw materials that we can tap into. And now that we have that, or will have that at least, we can start worrying about producing other items. So just going to grab a few more here. I don't want to run out of chests again. Whilst we're standing here, let's go ahead and lay down our splitters, since we have them in hand, and we gotta wait for the chests to build out anyway. Now, some folks are probably going to see this whole buffer thing as a waste of resources. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. In some ways, maybe it is, but like I say, it's going to give me a way of storing the incoming and storing the outgoing as well as taking up any bounce in the system. So for me, it's not a waste, and that I think, a lot of this stuff, frankly, is personal preference and personal opinion. As I said in my last video, or my last series, I don't get crazy head over heels go nuts about ratios. I mean, yes, there's a time and a place for that, and I don't disagree with trying to be efficient. It has its place. Don't get me wrong. I don't disagree with it. I just don't give myself heartburn worrying about it. At least not at the level of skill, if you will, if nothing else, that I play this game at. That part of it is interesting to me, and if I can at some point start worrying about that, yes. But what is just as interesting to me, to be honest, is just the whole base building thing. I like base building games, for whatever reason. I mean, I like dystopian future kind of games. I like post-apocalypse games. Fallout, 7 Days to Die, etc., etc. I like space games, KSP and things like that. But I also like base building games. Used to be tower defense games. I used to be really into tower defense games, and sometimes still. But it's that's what I like to do. So that's not everybody's cup of tea, and I understand that, and I'm fine with that. But this is what I like to do, and at the end of the day, let's be honest. That's what this is about, right? Is what each of us prefers to do or likes to do. It's not, none of us is perfect. None of us is the other person, So we all have our likes, we all have our dislikes, and I like Scrapple, and I like pork roll. Maybe you don't, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that somebody else doesn't like Scrapple. But don't fault me because I like it. Like I say, we each have our own likes and dislikes. And this way of doing things happens to be mine. So, to each his own, right? There we go. So that one's set up, except for the inserters and the the power poles. And as far as Scrapple goes, don't knock it till you tried it. No, honestly, I grew up eating Scrapple. I grew up eating a number of things that most people would probably go, what the hell? Cow's tongue. I grew up. My grandfather was a big fan of making cow tongue sandwich, and I grew up with that, and now I kind of have a taste for it myself. Weird some people out, but it's my thing. One thing that I do get a kick out of is these days you go into the store, and one of the things that they have in the store that just blows me away every time I see it is polenta. Polenta, big sounding name, really cool sounding name, and therefore we can charge a lot of money for it. When I was growing up, polenta was known by basically, I mean, you could, polenta was still out there, it's an Italian thing, what have you, but when I was growing up, we had another name for polenta, cornmeal mush, and you could buy a giant block of it for half what you're going to pay now in the store for polenta. And that just, I laugh every time I see that, because, you know, I grew up eating cornmeal mush in the mornings for breakfast, and it was basically polenta cut into slices, fried on a griddle, and then covered in syrup. And that's, you know, but nowadays you spend crazy money for it, and that just, I laugh about that every time I see that. Every time I go to the store and I see these little tiny rolls of polenta, and I can remember, you know, going to the store and buying great big blocks, basically the same as you would buy scrapple. Now, if you're not from this area, you may not know what scrapple is. Scrapple is kind of a Pennsylvania Dutch thing. The running joke is scrapple. It's made from all the meat we wouldn't put in Spam. And what it is it's a loaf of, you know, heavily seasoned leftover pork pieces that they make into a loaf. You slice it up, you fry it up, nice crispy on the outside, and nice and warm and mushy on the inside, kind of thing. And you eat it. You know, you can either eat it by itself on a plate, or you can do what I do is I make sandwiches with it. I scrapple and egg sandwiches with cheese and ketchup, man. That's a meal for me. So yeah, you know, everybody's different, and we should celebrate our differences. I mean, heck, I like to eat kimchi too. You know, I spent a year in Korea, and then I've been back several times since. You know, and I picked up a real taste for Korean food. So not everybody is a kimchi eater. Me, I like it. You know. On the other hand, I have never, and I can say this happily, I have never eaten Rocky Mountain oysters. And again, to each their own, but just not my kind of thing. I'm not saying they're bad. I don't know. I've never had them. And I'm not saying anybody who does eat them is wrong or strange or anything else. That's not my thing, you know. And difference is what makes the world go round. You know, so yeah. So it's the same thing with Factorio, in my opinion, is that everybody has a different play style. Everybody plays it different. Everybody plays, you know, 7 Days to Die different. They play, you know, Fallout different. Everybody's got their way that they play things. That's not to say that any person's way is right, wrong, or indifferent. Oh, I know why. Okay. I was confused here for a minute. I couldn't understand why it was not going the way I wanted it to go, and that's because there's no splitters there yet. There we go. So yeah, I'm out of splitters. I did get all my chests in. I need what? 4, 6, 10 splitters. Alright, let's go up here and grab the raw materials and get the splitters processing, and while we're doing that we can put in our inserters. And then we can scratch our heads and figure out how to hook this all into the system, guys. So what do we need for our splitters? We need copper. We're going to need iron too, but we need copper. So let's grab, you know what? Let's go over here where they're both side by side. And we'll go up here while we're here, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit closer view of how I set these furnaces up. Because it may seem a little odd that I've got like 2 and 2 coming down here. So let me kind of give you guys a once over of what we've got going. So I got my 2 belts coming in, or my 4 belts coming in. I split 2 to each side, and then I ran them all the way up, and I just plucked off of each of them with a splitter to come in and combine basically into a single splitter to go each way. I figure that's going to give me as much throughput to this point as I possibly can with regards to ore. There's no reason I should, as long as I have ore, that these should run overly dry because of the amount that's coming through. And each of these feeds 3 electric furnaces on a side. They come out, jump back onto a belt, and come out the same way that the other ones came in. So I had to figure out a way, since they're coming out, and this is based off of Joe Mama's design. I don't know whether he got it from somebody else or what, but this is kind of based off the design that he uses, and I just kind of flippy floppied them as I went up to um, tile them in here. And then what happens is it comes out, and like I say, I had to figure out a way to bring all of them down together. So what I did is, since I've got 2 lines coming out of each one, and I wanted to kind of do the same thing that I'm doing here, where I'm pushing resources to these choke points as fast as I can, so that even though we have the choke point, we shouldn't see too much of a delay. So every one of these comes off with 2 lines on each side. So then I come down with the 2 lines, and I just combined it with splitters and bring it back to one single line. And each time it comes down, it combines, so on and so forth, and then we got our outputs. So that's going to give us our 4 inputs and our 4 outputs for both of these smelter areas. Now, the steel smelting, on the other hand, I took a little bit of a different path with it. I only did 1 row, but I did multiple, as you can see, sets of these 6 smelters. And then I plucked off on this side only with a splitter, and that's why I have more iron production than I do copper production, for that reason, and also because we always use more iron than we use copper anyway. But I wanted to go ahead and compensate for this. Alright, let's see. You know what? Fluid wagons. I think fluid wagons... You know what? Fudgicles. Well, you know what? They're both going to research. I mean, we're putting enough into it now that we're fine. We're not hurting for either. So anyway, so they pull out and go into these, and then of course I did a kind of a bastardization of what I've got over here, and I brought it down into 2 lines. So I've got 2 lines coming in for the steel, and then 4 lines each for the copper and iron plates. And that's you know how I got it set up. Now, you know, we'll see if that works out for us or not. So let's go ahead. We are here. Let's go ahead and start putting in our inserters. And yes, I don't have power poles in yet. Yell at me. I know. Blinky, blinky, blinky. I'll get to you. Honest, I will. One thing at a time. I multitask okay, but generally speaking, things like this, I try to do them systematically. And the reason I do that is because if I don't, and I get to talking, or something comes up, or the dogs throw up on the floor, or God knows what, you know, or they want to go out, or who knows, I lose my place. And if I lose my place, I'm liable to not put something in. I'm liable to miss something. So if I do it systematically, I don't have to worry as much. Notice I said as much about forgetting stuff. I may still forget stuff, but I'm not as likely to do so if I try to be at least reasonably. I don't know why I don't do that. Well, I don't know that that's any faster. Probably isn't faster. This is probably just as fast, if not faster. And I'm liable to run out of inserters as well. We'll see. I tried to grab as many as were available. They're all blinky blinky. They're all blinky blinky. Good. Means we've covered all the holes. Now, mind you, video games is not the only kind of gaming I do either. Of course, at my age, like I say, I'm 53. So, been around for a while, been around the block for a while. I started out playing role-playing games. I can remember my first set of D&D books, was the little pamphlets. Back before the hardbound books and what have you. Down the street from where I live, the next town over is University of Delaware. And it's a college town and what have you. And in town, they had a place called Punch and Judy's. And what Punch and Judy's was a marionette store. They sold marionettes. They sold ventriloquism dolls, etc. And on the side, just kind of as an afterthought, they sold things like tarot cards and whatnot. Oh, yep, there we go. I'm out of inserters. That's okay. They sold all kinds of different little odds and ends, weird stuff, tarot cards, that sort of thing, Ouija boards, yada yada yada. And one of the things they sold was D&D stuff there. Back when D&D first really kind of started getting big and coming out and what have you. So that was where I used to go. And the interesting thing is that nowadays, Punch and Judy's is no longer there. It's gone. It moved, what have you. And it moved up to the other end of the main thoroughfare, through town, and was bought out, I think, by some of the employees, or I'm not sure exactly what the story is, but it's now known as a place called Days of Nights, and they no longer do marionettes at all that I've seen in there ever. It is now a gaming store. They do nothing but games, role-playing games, Magic the Gathering, dice games, board games, you name it. Pretty much, with the exception of electronic games, computer games, they do it. They sell figures and what have you. So that's my beginnings of gaming. Is back in the day. I was a role playing game person. I was pretty geeky. I belonged to the chess club. I belonged to the D&D club in high school. I was on the track team. I ran track for 4 years. I don't think I could run a mile nowadays without dying, but back in the day, I was on the track team, and things like that. I had a Rubik's cube. Rubik's cubes came out while I was in high school, and they were hugely popular. Um, that sort of thing. So, I'm a geek from way back. Um, and I've also been a bit of a computer nerd. I mean, I'm not the bestest when it comes to computers, but I get by. Um, these days, um, I'm running two different Macs. I'm running an iMac, and I'm running a Mac Pro, which I'm actually running my Mac Pro um, dual booted, which is what I'm playing on right now. I'm using it as a Windows machine at the moment, um, but I also use it as a Mac. I just switch back and forth as needed for video editing and things of that nature. Um, so yeah, so I've been doing all kinds of different gaming for a while. But what led me to the initial mention of computer games is um, my first computer that I bought for myself um, was back in the day. I had been in the army for like 3 years at the time, um, because when I first went in, there was no such an animal. But then after my tour in Korea and what have you, after school, and then after my military school, and then after my tour in Korea, I came back to the States and had a pretty good paycheck and what have you. So I bought my first computer, and my first computer was a Commodore 64. And believe it or not, I actually still have that sucker. I have not pulled it out in some time, but the last time I pulled it out, it still worked. Um, you know, it was it was a pretty cool computer to have. It was, um, for its time, it was pretty awesome. You could play games on it and what have you. And spent a lot of time playing games on that sucker. Spent a lot of time at the arcades too. I mean, kids nowadays, arcades really aren't there anymore. I mean, there's some, but you know, it's not like what it was when I was a kid. So, those days are coming to a middle, as they say, or at least, I guess, or coming to an end almost. Now, there is a cool place down for anybody who is into those sorts of things, arcades, what have you. Um, I went down to North Carolina for a couple of weddings and for a college graduation. And in Asheville, North Carolina, there is, and I can't remember the name, I think it's actually just Pinball Museum. There is a museum down there for pinball machines. Now, pinball machines are not the only thing they have there. They have video games there as well. Um, but that's what it is a pinball museum, and it is awesome. They sell pinball machines. They sell um, arcade video game machines, what have you. You can get a lot of different things there, and it is really a cool place. If anybody is ever has the opportunity to be down in that area, man, I highly, and if you're into like old school arcade games and things like that, man, I highly recommend checking it out. It is freaking awesome. We went down there and it's cheap. It's you pay one fee to get into the place, and then from there everything is playable. You don't have to pay per game or anything like that. It's all part of the entrance fee, and that's how they pay for this museum. And dude, I got to tell you, it is freaking amazing in there. They've got hundreds of arcade games, easily hundreds of them, and well worth a visit if you ever get down in that area, if you are a geeky arcade gamer like me. I basically bought my first computer, my Commodore, so that I didn't have to spend as much money at the arcade as what I was spending, to give you some idea of, my roots, if you will. All right, guys, so there we go. They are up and running. So I think let's run the belts over to these, and let's get these started filling up, shall we? So I'm going to go in order, just because that way I don't have to lap belts. So we're going to go steel, iron, copper. Now with the steel, we only have 2 steel lines, so we only really need to pull 2 steel lines up here. We don't need to have to run more than that. So let's run these over, and I'm leaving myself enough space to be able to kind of work with. Oops, are you kidding me? Well, you know what, fine, let's just build a bunch and get this one hooked up, and then we can run down and grab some more. I thought I'd have enough, but apparently not. Alright, so we got our steel going. Let's run down here and grab some belts for the rest of it. And I have a feeling we're not going to get to our refinery setup today. I think this is all we're going to get done, is just setting up the remainder of our plate production. But that's okay. At least we got that done, and we got some more stuff researched. When I'm doing stuff off camera, just the odds and ends scut work kind of stuff, I don't do any research whilst I'm doing that, simply by virtue of the fact that I don't want to deprive you guys of the well, you know what I mean. I don't want you guys to miss out on me doing the research and jumping up in tech levels, if I can get away with not doing that. Yeah, you know what, I think we want to do this. Yeah, I think we want to go right up against that, with 4. I mean, if we have to, we can always go underground with the other ones in order to cross something. Because, yeah, we're going to have to do it this way, simply by virtue of the fact that we got to be able to have room to bring the copper over to. I don't think 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we kind of screwed ourselves, didn't we? All right, but we can move this down some. We can move this down by 1. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. All right, let's bring this over to our other iron supply. We'll be all right. It's an old saying, piss poor planning provides piss poor performance. And I kind of didn't plan this as well as I should have, I guess. But that's okay. We will make it work, folks. If we ever have to cross these belts, which I don't think we're going to have to, we will make it work. Now that we had to do, but that's minor. And of course I kind of screwed myself because we're going to have to move that pole again. Like I say, piss poor performance, or piss poor planning provides piss poor performance, folks. Best I can tell you. So what am I doing here? We are going to take out this one row of belts, and that will give us enough to be able to get this all in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And then these will come up 1 and 2, and these will come down, over, down. Oop, nope. Down, over, over. Then this will come down, down. There we go. There's what we want. There's what we're after. Actually, no, it's not. This is what we're after. And then 1, 2. All right. You know, it took us a minute. We figured it out. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Right, right. Cool. And then 1, 2. And then there's our pole we were stupid enough to put in the wrong place. And then let's not be stupid twice. There we go. Come on. Alright guys, there we go. Sorry about all that. I kind of had a bit of a mouth breather moment there. So, yeah, there we go. Now we got her going. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, and there's probably a number of you, when I was going through power plant school, one of the things that had come up in discussion was somebody had read an article or something that they did a medical study, and it said something to the effect that when people think, the brain requires more oxygen, and when someone is lacking in intelligence or lacking in mental capacity, um, as they have to think harder, they tend to mouth breathe. And so the running joke became, of course, that someone was a mouth breather. If they were stupid, they were a mouth breather. And so yeah, so I was having a bit of a mouth breather moment there. There are a lot of little stupid terms like that in the Army. Well, not stupid, just a lot of colloquialisms, if you will. Um, another biggie was if you were a Blue Falcon. Uh-oh, looks like we may have a power problem. Is it an all-over power problem? It looks like we are running low on power. Let's see. Oh, yeah. We have no power. Yes, we have no power today. Alright, well, that's not a good thing, folks. At least right now we're running turrets, so we're not too bad off with regards to our defenses. We're running turrets as opposed to running lasers. So it looks like somewhere along the way our coal got low and run our power out, and it couldn't keep up. So what we need to do is we need to add more mines to our coal production, and then we need to shut everything down and restart it, so that we have adequate coal supply. So let's go ahead and get our mines set up first. Like I say, we're doing all right as far as defenses, because our defenses are currently just turrets. So the only thing we've really lost is our production and our radar. So we're okay. It's not going to kill us completely, but what we can do at this point anyway is we can shut down these, because we don't need these anymore. We'll let them run through the last of their stuff, but we need neither of these anymore. So we'll let them run through the last of their stuff, but we will not continue it from there. So let's do this. Let's pick up all of this coal. Okay. Of course, we moved around on the belt, but we'll pick up all this coal. I don't want the copper, I just want the coal. We'll get all this set up, and then we will go back and we will throw all of it in the into coal production, into electrical production. So let's see, we got that. We need that, and we need that. Is it not? Okay. Yeah, put it there, put it there, put it there, put it there, and we'll bridge the gap here, and we'll bridge the gap here. All right. And then let's go ahead and yeah, let's move some stuff. Let's go ahead and bring all of this down this way. And this is my fault because I did not pay attention to it. I should have been paying attention to this, and I did not. I did not hit her. I did not. Kudos to you if you know what movie that's from. It is something of a running joke where I work because of how bad that movie is, and because of the fact that, you know, I teach movie making. So if you know what that movie is, kudos to you, because it is horrible, which is what's fun about it. It is definitely a laugh a minute, and yeah, pretty funny movie. Alright, so I think we got our coal supply set back up. What we're going to do is we're going to kill power there, and we are going to kill power here. That isolates all of this from the grid. That sends our power here. We're going to isolate our, and what would be nice is if I had put switches in to begin with, which, you know, we don't have switches right now, I don't think, right? But by doing this, in theory, if I get enough of the poles, alright, so I've isolated all of this from the grid. So when I start my plant up, I don't have to pick up all of this load at once. I can just get my my plant up and running again, with the exception of a few things over here, which I'm not going to get that crazy about it. But this will allow me to go through and dump the coal into these and get them going. And then from there, now, this is one of those things where I don't do what Joe Mama does, but I agree with him 100%. He uses burner inserters for his boilers because burner inserters will fuel themselves, and as long as there is coal available, they will go ahead and pump coal into the boiler, and that's a good thing. I, for whatever reason, don't use them. It's just, I don't know, habit, I guess, if you will, as much as it is anything else. Tend to not use them, and I you know, at the end of the day, that probably is not the best thing to be doing. Ooh, all right, isolate that. Isolate that. We did pull too many lines down over here. We want to, you go away too, and you. We just want to connect our coal back so that we can start producing our coal, get our coal back on our line before we hook everything else back up. We want to get our coal built back up, and that should do it. So anyway, like I say, that's one of those things that I don't do for whatever reason, habit, I guess, as much as anything else. I don't want to increase pollution, but you know, we're talking about boilers. There's already tons of pollution here anyway. But I probably should start getting in the habit of using burner inserters for my power plants, or at least the ones that require fuel, burnable fuel, combustible fuel, as opposed to nuke plants, which don't require that. So yeah. But anyway, I think that's what happened. Is I think our coal production kind of got behind a little bit, and the boilers couldn't keep up. And since the boilers couldn't keep up, in all likelihood, that's what killed us. So, again, like I say, I think we're going to let this go ahead and play itself out. We went ahead and eliminated the connection. We'll let this go ahead and finish itself out, and then we're going to be pulling up these plants anyway. So let's go ahead and repower stuff down here temporarily, a little at a time here. That's going to actually probably energize that whole system. Yeah, it is, for the most part. That's okay. We'll be all right, I think. I think we had a big pole here to cover these, and just a small pole. There we go. So now what are we missing? We're missing our oil production. Alright, we should have everything powered back up. Let's look what that did to our power usage. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so there's where our issue is we're definitely need more power. Do we have... I thought I had built... and you know what? Let's get down here and check and make sure it's not a steam issue, not a fluid issue. A little of both, I guess. A little of both. We could probably use some more water. Let's put in another pump. Couldn't hurt, right? Let's put in another pump. I know I have straight pipe somewhere. I thought I had straight pipe somewhere. Do I not have any straight pipe? Whoa. Alright, well, I only need 2, and there's 2. That's got that going. Right? So that should help us some, I would think. And I know we're still sucking hind tit. I thought I had made... Maybe I didn't. Or maybe they're up here in one of these chests. No. No. And no. Alright, let's make a couple of more steam engines while we're down here. Iron, iron, iron. Iron, 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 and some stone. Alright, so let's grab some stone. And let's grab iron. And let's make 5 of those. 1, 2. Let's make 1 more steam engine. There we go. So that should give us enough that we can tag on a couple more. Alright, we'll see how far that needs to go. And did we, where's our there's our boilers. So space boiler, boiler, and steam engine, steam engine, steam engine, steam engine, space steam engine, steam engine. We're short by one boiler. Yeah, we're short by one boiler. And boiler. And now we just need some straight pipe. So pipe, pipe. Right? And then inserter, inserter, inserter. Bum bum bum. Power pole. Power pole. Power pole. Alright, how's that looking for us? There we go. We're back to where we sort of should be. And part of it is, and I know what part of it is now that I think about it, we started dumping everything into those buffers, which means all the furnaces fired up. I didn't even think about that at the time. I should have done so, and I didn't. That fired up all of those furnaces up there, which means yeah, we're starting to get a little down there on water, but I think we're okay. Steam is building up. I think we'll be all right. Let's see where we stand here now. All right. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, guys. I opened up these buffers and I started producing metric crap tons of plates because of these buffers. And so it fired up all of this production. But it's a good way for us to stress the system and see how we're doing. And it looks like the iron and the copper are keeping up with the buffers pretty darn nicely. In fact, we've got some furnaces that aren't even running. Where we're falling behind is in our steel production, and part of that, as much as anything else, is the fact that we're using these yellow inserters. So once we swap out to a faster inserter, that should keep up fairly nicely. And look at that go, man. And these will all, like I say, this will all fill up, and this will give us the buffer we need. Now, in addition to this, we're not going to run everything through these buffers. We're gonna keep these buffers here, but we're also going to have a bypass line somewhere for all of these, in order to bypass these and have flow that doesn't rely on the inserters, because the inserters are what are going to slow us down. So there it is, guys. That's our plate production. All 3 plates. I'm going to go ahead and off camera go ahead and finish hooking these in, because it's going to take a while for me to scratch my head to figure out how to hook these in with the bypass and what have you. But that's going to get us going. So I apologize that this was just kind of a lot of scut work and building, but you know, we needed to do it. So I hope you got something out of this. We did have that little bit of an emergency, which was kind of fun. And there we go. So you guys have a good day. You know, if you got something out of this, you know, like, subscribe, comment. Love to hear your feedback. All right. Talk to you all later.